competitive bidding processes. So there's a number of things we can do. In terms of EDI, look, most councils spend pence on things like that. It's a distraction. And actually what most councils are doing is spending upwards of 80% of their spend on looking after the most vulnerable children and adults in their communities.
And a brief last one, it is interesting that you've had the support of what, more than 40 Conservative MPs, including the likes of Priti Patel, saying our councils haven't got enough money either.
Listen, this is cross-party, and we're seeing councils of all associations in this difficulty. We want to work with the government and the next government, whether it's a new government or a returning government, to fix this issue. You can't fix the NHS without fixing social care, and you can't level up communities without investing in local councils to support their local communities.
Councillor Sean Davis, Chair of the Local Government Association. Thanks for joining us.
21 minutes past 8, Scotland is to get a new national park, which sounds rather wonderful, doesn't it? But it is not, according to those campaigning against it. The pledge to do it is a key part of the agreement between the Greens and the SNP that brought the Greens into government. The agreement laid the groundwork for both parties to cooperate in Scotland's Parliament on delivering what they call a shared programme to build a greener, fairer, independent Scotland. The site, though, for the new national park that seems to be the front runner is rural Galloway, and Stuart Wiley is on the line, who's the Dumfries and Galloway Regional Chair for the National Farmers Union, as is Ariane Burgess, who's a member of the Scottish Parliament for the Highlands and Islands, Green MSP. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Ariane Burgess, first of all, why? Why, if it is to be rural Galloway, is rural Galloway suitable?
Well, I wouldn't want to preempt the decision. We're still in a process. So there were 10 communities that came forward proposing that they wanted to bring forward an application. What happened last week on the 29th of February was that 5 applications actually came in. So I wouldn't want to pin it all on Dumfries and Galloway, as much as it's a lovely part of of Scotland. We have 4 other bids, and they're all very worthwhile as well. And I would say there are 2 tremendous bids that are in my region that I wouldn't want to not be representing properly here.
Right, understood. But why would rural Galloway be a reasonable place to have it?
Well, I think that all of the bids offer tremendous opportunity for more infrastructure, more opportunities for visitors to come and see these beautiful parts of Scotland. Everything, the Dumfries and Galloway bid has this incredible coastline to offer, as well as forested areas and landscape. So, and in my region, we've got incredible mountainous areas that are just, when people think about Scotland, they think about those big, that kind of landscape. But I think we also need to acknowledge that Scotland already has 2 national parks. They've been around for about 20 years. England has many more, as does Wales. Wales has 3 national parks. It's time for Scotland to have a national park. What we've learned from the back of COVID is that people really cherish being in nature. It's tremendous for their mental health. And a national park creates a place, it's a designated area where people can go to. And I think more and more people who live in cities need that kind of direction. Like, come to this area, it's signposted, it's got facilities, it's got teams of rangers that can introduce you to the landscape and support you in how to interact with nature in a caring and responsible manner.
Stuart Wiley, let me come back to Stuart Wiley then. You made your point. Let me put it to Stuart Wiley. You encourage people into the area, you improve the area, you look after the area. What can go wrong with that?
Well, it sounds very fancy or ideological, but quite simply, it's not needed, it's not wanted, it certainly can't be afforded, and it adversely affects living and working there. And ironically, we already have the EPCs and the mechanisms there to deliver on biodiversity, climate change, outdoor enjoyment, and most importantly of all, we can't forget, is food production. From what we can see, this is a badly thought out, unfunded social experiment that basically looks little more than a vanity project. And what we must remember this time is, this is jeopardising the food security of our nation, as this is potentially the first time a national park could exist in an area of highly productive agriculture. So what would agriculture? What's all the question? Because the question we've been asking for the last 4 years is no answers. But like this position to start with, and we asked a range of questions, which none have been answered. Is it going to affect bureaucracy? Is it going to affect planning? What's it going to do with jobs market? Is it going democracy. These are all questions of the answer.
When it comes to regulations imposed on farmers,
What is the answer?
what would happen is part of the council.
Well, one of the things I want to say is that I'm totally with Stuart in terms of the challenging times that farmers are facing right now. We are going to actually tomorrow in my committee, we're having a Rural Affairs and Lands Committee, and we've been taking evidence on the upcoming agricultural.
But what is the answer?
Bill, and tomorrow we're going to be looking at our report and finalising that. And from that work, I have had great contact with farmers. A couple of weeks ago, we had 40 farmers
Yeah,
coming to the
fair enough,
Parliament.
but his question is, does this lead or does it not lead to any further restrictions on what farmers can do in an area that is designated a national park?
What it will lead to is collaboration and partnership and more support. At a time when we need to transition farming, and that's part of what I was saying in the agricultural European bill, is that farmers are going to have this transition in their practices, and I know that's a very challenging thing at the moment. I want to see farmers support this, but don't transition in that way. And the national park, wherever it is, not necessarily Dublin Gallery, is when support that. I think every part support farmers will have access to policies that will understand what they're going to do.
Right, I suspect this is something and just still
they've already a meaningfully better health. Well, at practice day, later today in California, the players involved will start tomorrow will be in the world's highest level and Katie Walter, winner at the UK, will play first WTA 500 event in San Diego. So first for Walter, a reflection on that on Sunday against the Ukrainian Marta Koki.
This one is really amazing. I worked very hard for it. It's been having tennis all week. Today was a complete battle with myself as well because I was a little bit nervous, but I managed to get over the line and I'm very proud.
Well, former professional player, now coaching national team, Norman Callaghan. From what you know, you were commentating, weren't you, on the and you remember they're talking about complete battle because there's a huge sense there.
Sabi pwede magagawa. Ha?
It did so much of a bit.
Pwede magagawa.
That's only my first time she's set through. She had some problem with her leg was absolutely huge. Yes, in that final, it was the biggest final she had ever been in. Of course, it took her a little while to settle, but by the time she got to the third set, she was off and flying, and she was utterly great.
So let's just consider this then, the way ahead for Katie Walter. Now at the age of 27, up to a world ranking of 27.
I'm beating people ranked high, a lot higher than me day in, day out, and that's where I need to be, but nothing stops me, it's an uphill battle, and I just want to keep going and see how far I can get, because ultimately, I just want to do the best I can, and I've always asked that of myself.
So she wants to keep going and see how far she can get from now. I mean, how far can she go?
Oh, it's incredible. incredibly exciting right now. I mean, she has been on the rise for some time. She had some injury setbacks a couple of years ago, but really, I think everybody expected 2024 to be a fantastic year for her, but the speed of this ascent has been pretty astonishing. She has flown up so far. I mean, it was only March, and she is doing some incredible things. So I think this year is going to be really exciting. The sky is the limit, and as I was saying, she has such a big, powerful game. I was watching it. I watched her matches all through San Diego last week, and I was just thinking, how on earth does anyone live with this? She dismissed 2 top 20 players. She won the title, and when I say dismissed, she beat them very, very comfortably. So when she's feeling confident, and now it's all really starting to come together, I mean, honestly, she's playing at least the top 20, possibly top 10 standard here.
Encouraging thoughts there from Naomi Kennedy. Thank you very much. Well, it's emerged that UK Sport and UK Athletics are jointly planning to bid to host the 2029 World Championships. A feasibility study needs to take place, but BBC Sport has been told that the sports leaders are determined to host transformational major championships. This followed the London World Championships 7 years ago and Glasgow's indoor event last week. And the Willie Mullins Horse Statement has been installed as favourite for the Champion Hurdle a week today, the first day of this year's Cheltenham Festival. This will follow the withdrawal of the unbeaten Constitution Hill, which has failed to recover from amputation. Here are the tips then. Mayfield 332, number 2, Hunter Legend. Newcastle 350, number 6, Call Me Jack.
Rob, thank you. Let us hear from Jonathan Frieda now about this morning's edition of The Long View.
A grave scandal rumbles on for years. Action begins to come when the press takes an interest, but only really takes off when the storytellers get involved. That's what's happened in early 2024 with mass pardons and legislation promised following the ITV drama Mr. Bates versus the Post. But it's not wholly new. It took the involvement of the big novelists of the age to get results in 2 of the major scandals of the Victorian era too. So join me for the long view of the drama of scandal in half an hour and on BBC Sounds.
Quick look at the weather now. Patchy rain in eastern areas today. Brighter skies developing tonight. Showers in the west.
You're listening to Today on Radio 4, Nick Robinson and Pascal Webb. The time's 28 minutes to 9. Alan Smith has the news.
The Chancellor Jeremy Hunt is to urge councils in England to cut back on what he believes is wasteful spending on consultants and diversity schemes when he sets out his budget tomorrow. The funding of local government will come into focus later when councillors in Birmingham vote on £300 million worth of savings. The chair of the Local Government Association, Paul Davies, told this programme that councils have been doing more with less for quite some time. The funding model is not sustainable. Millions of voters are heading to the polls in 15 US states and 1 overseas territory to choose their preferred candidates for November's presidential election. Polling suggests the results will be likely to move a rematch of Joe Biden and Donald Trump a step closer. The Prisons Watchdog has found a vulnerable girl at a young offenders institution in Wetherby was pinned down and forcibly stripped by male guards twice. The Chief Inspector of Prisons for England and Wales, Charlie Taylor, said he was deeply shocked. The officers said they acted to stop her from harming herself.
Thank you. 26 minutes to 9. A long-running police inquiry known as Operation Canova is expected to lift the curtain on the secret war between the British state and the IRA in Northern Ireland. It's taken 7 years to solve it, costing £40 million. At its heart, the notorious British Mike Cobain steak knife. BBC reporter Peter Taylor has investigated the so-called dirty war for 40 years. It's just made a new film. It's called Our Dirty War, the British state and the IRA. It's available on iPhone now. Peter Taylor is available to talk to live now. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Justin.
What is the latest twist in this?
The latest twist is that, yet again, the state has set up an inquiry into the activities of the intelligence services and the reaction of the IRA to it in the so-called dirty war. It's the latest in a long line of inquiries that stretch way back to the 1970s, which I also covered with the Army's MRF, the Military Reaction Force, through the Stalker inquiries in the 1980s through to Canova. So the problem is that these reports have never given the answers that people who had a vested interest in them, i.e. families who had suffered, they never got the answers that they were looking for. And families who suffered because their loved ones were arrested, interrogated, and then ultimately, when they confessed to being alleged informers, were executed, murdered by the IRA. Those families, are also looking for answers, but I don't think those answers will be given in the report, simply because they can't be given. Because one of the things that families want to know is, was my husband, was my son an informer? The state, the government can never admit that an individual was an informer. And State Knife, believed to be Frederick Scappaticci, who died last year, is a classic case in point. The government would neither confirm nor deny that Freddie Scappaticci was State Knife, and I think in the report, not even Canova, after 7 years and £40 million roughly spent on investigating it, not even Canova will confirm that Freddie Scappaticci was State Knife. So I think families will be frustrated because they won't get answers to some of their questions. And also, if our loved ones were working for British intelligence, why weren't they rescued?
And in a sense, then, it's just the ability through you and through your film to ask those questions, I suppose, and to bring our attention to it.
Well, we journalists ask those questions because they're questions that we want to ask and get answered. But essentially, what we're doing is asking those questions on behalf of the families. And I think one of the interesting things about Operation Canova, although it's looking at statement, it's not going to go into the weeds, the details of what he did and the cases in which he was involved. But what I think the report will do, and this is what John Boucher, who led the inquiry for 7 years and is now Chief Constable of the Police Service of Northern Ireland, what he was concerned to do was that State Knife was able to give families a voice that they had been denied for 30 years. And certainly two of the remarkable women I re-interviewed, whom I interviewed initially decades ago, 30 plus years ago, have been in the dark for all this time, wanting answers to questions that they have never been able to get. And I don't think they're going to get to their satisfaction from Canova.
Does anyone argue to you, not necessarily in this film, but in your long experience of this, that the Dirty War was worth fighting, that the things done, particularly on the British state side, were things that were ultimately for a purpose that was wise and just, and it worked?
I think the problem is that if you apply the saying that, the end justifies the means, the end being either the defeat,
Wasn't it, for the nation? It brought to the fore the devastating issue of male predators within the country's main police forces, and highlighted as well the extent of violence against women and girls more widely in British society, an issue that was declared a national priority alongside terrorism and organised crime. There is a documentary now, Sarah Everard, The Search for Justice. It's a BBC documentary. Lottie Gammon, the director, is here in the studio. Good morning. Made why?
I think Sarah Everard was one that I think when I speak to anyone about it really touched people very deeply and really awoke something in the public. People started feeling very concerned about violence against women and girls. As we were making the documentary, events really started to take over with more and more officers being charged with sexual offences, and we realised that this was a much bigger film that we needed to make, and it was really important to us to incorporate how Sarah's case had actually impacted all those following cases as well.
Do you have the cooperation of her family in this?
We've been talking to Sarah's family from the beginning, so then keeping Sarah's personal private memories of Sarah private was very important, and so we've obviously respected that. It's been important for us to keep them updated throughout, but this is not in collaboration with them. We've made it separately from them.
Because it must be hugely difficult for them. On the one hand, just the horror of dealing with it, what happened on a personal level, but also that kind of sense that they must have, or did you get this from them, that they want these issues to be discussed?
I have to keep my conversations with them private. There's I think, as we know from their statement about the Angelini inquiry, they absolutely would like to see change happen along recommendations that came from that inquiry, and many of the things that we bring up in our film, including very important new procedures that there should be around vetting. So I know all those things are important. They put those things out into the public domain.
You say procedures there should be. Does your film conclude that we have not made anything like the progress we could have and should have since?
I think the job of our film was really to take people back to the 10 days where Sarah went missing, and that awful time, and really remember what that felt like, but then also lay out what has happened since in a simple form, because we're only an hour-long documentary, and obviously there's been a huge amount that's happened since then.
Online status on.
I think
Posted by you forgot a login in our chest. 18 hours ago, my GF is a lesbian. We've been together for 7 years. Sex used to be fire when we first started, but over the years it's got less and less. I found it frustrating, but thought it was normal when you settle into a long-term thing. I've tried to spice stuff up, bought toys and focused on foreplay whenever she's willing, but it's been like a sinking ship on her end as far as I can tell. She's 28F, had a very close friend who told me for the last 3 years. It made me uncomfortable how much of our private life we seem to know, and we've talked about how I don't like this, but it gets brushed it off as normal for girl bestie, and if he likes you she just gives me advice on stuff. We'll sleep over in our bed while I'm out of town, or on a sesh with mates. This has been going on for their entire friendship. I used to like it and think it was cute to start with, but as the sex between us has died up, always be initiating, and it feels like she just goes along with it for duty. She doesn't put effort in like she used to, even though she's looking after her. Looks better than ever. Long story short, I said I was stopping at my mate's this Friday, but came back at 1 a.m. to find them naked in bed together. They claim they were watching a fine film. I'm heartbroken. I've stayed with my parents all weekend. Love me to go home after work today, and I don't know what to do. She could have just told me she was into girls' school. It's the lies that make me feel like I'm close to her. I'm going to pack my stuff, but got no idea what to say her. She's made me feel like a desperate sex freak for so long, to only find out she's been getting it with her best friend. 1,735 votes, 137 comments, comment by illustrious for 8,808, 17 hours ago, 843 votes. That's disrespectful. Now you have space to step back, reevaluate your position, act accordingly. It'll hurt, but now you can stop feeling like this and find someone who actually is into you. That's messed up, and TBH, you don't owe her an explanation. Not gonna lie, I just disappeared. Category replied to illustrious for 8,808, 16 hours ago, 168 votes. What hurts me is that they've been together for years. Disappearing on a long-term partner is so hard-faced with big pleading eyes. But I've definitely disappeared for a few months. Illustrious for 8,808 replied to category 24 minutes ago, 3 votes. Clearly he and you are the only one who cares about her. She doesn't give a rat's tail about that, cause look how she's moving.
However you want to call them, were brought out based on the anatomy, the pressure points, how a male athlete moves. So the weight distribution when they change direction, the shear forces through the knee and the hip joints, all of those things were, from a sports science point of view, we're looking at developing a trainer or a shoe to help protect that person and to absorb the cushioning. Now, those forces are subtly different for female athletes, and for your average trainer wearer as well, who is female. The angles of our hip to knee joints are very, very different. Clearly, our the menstrual cycle that every female goes through is something that has an impact on how, not just footwear, but certainly the design of training programs can be very, very different for females versus men.
So the answer to this is a lot more, so it's quicker, is it?
Yes, it's not down just to footwear. Footwear is just a brilliant example that all designs, all programs, all thoughts have been on men in this last 100 years of development. And we just want some research and development to be done purely for females to readdress that balance.
Right around finish. Thanks for joining. Sorry the line wasn't great there, but the key point about that, an injury that's well known as what we've got up and down the land, was made well. Thank you.
5 to 9 is the time. Ukrainians in exile planning the rebuilding of the destroyed and now Russian-occupied city of Mariupol have been touring Hull here in England to learn from that city's regeneration after the bombing of World War II. too, finding out indeed that the two cities appear to have quite a lot in common. Let's talk to Mykola Trofimenko, who's the rector of Mariupol State University, joining us now from Kiev, and David Atkinson as well, who's Professor of Cultural and Historical Geography at the University of Hull. Morning to you both.
Good morning.
Mykola Trofimenko, first of all, you came to Hull to see what? What was it that you needed to see that can give you hope for what you want to do in Mariupol?
Actually, we are establishing and developing cooperation with the University of Hull for 1.5 years. And this university was one of the first to respond to our demands when we were displaced to Kiev, and we restarted our activities and tried to rebuild our university on the new place. And the answer of the university was to help us financially, with equipment, and now we want to develop really strategic partnership and by developing common projects and common educational projects first of all. Of course, for us it was a surprise when we found out that we have absolutely common profiles of the city, because Mariupol also was very much industrial, a seaport, and very much polluted air and water. And actually, the experience of how this city was rebuilt after World War II and the total destruction by the German fleet, how this city was able to defeat the mental health problems and to return people to the regular life and to the normal life. It's a huge experience for us and a huge expertise.
What were you able, can I put that to David Atkinson, what were you able to tell the visitors from Ukraine, Professor, about how Hull had responded, both physically and mentally, I suppose, as well, to the Blitz?
Yeah, the Blitz didn't impact on deaths as much as 1,200 deaths in Hull, 3,000 people injured, 20% of them children. But what Hull did was lived under the threat of the Blitz for 5 years or so. So it was that sense of kind of doom and potential thing like going to bed at night and being hit by a bomb on your street. So what happened was the city developed various ways of allowing people to get out of the city overnight in the summer, sleep in the suburbs, sleep in the villages around the city, and the city councils supported that, even though the government scientists in the town measuring trauma and stress of life under the bombs, they were trying to hope that people stay in situ for their research purposes. But what also the city did was then start to rebuild after the war, to be resilient, to think about how it might reward and repay the citizens for their struggle, for their suffering, as the most bombed city in the UK by some words at the time. And they commissioned a utopian plan for Hull to reconstruct the city using the best possible modern planning practices. And Patrick Abercrombie and Edward Lutyens, leading architects and planners of the day, said out of the ashes of the old would arise phoenix-like, fairer and noble city than we've ever known.
And that, of course, Mykola Trofimenko, is what you are planning for Mariupol.
Yeah, it's a huge experience, as I said, but now what Hull is living actually now is decarbonization, it's green technology, modernization, and everything we want to happen with a new Mariupol. That it's important to plan how we will rebuild the city, because the university now identifies actually the main goal of the university to preserve Mariupol identity, to make people remember from where they are, and to be prepared actually to come back after we will liberate the city. In this sense, I think we have a lot of work for our partners with the University of Hull, and it's very much promising, and it will, of course, influence the bilateral cooperation between the Ukraine and the United Kingdom.
Okay, well, look, good luck with it, and let's hope you get back there soon. Mykola Trofimenko and David Atkinson from Hull University. Thank you.
That is all from us today. Our editors were Percy Padley and Scott Adams. The director was Shona O'Donoghue. Just thank you for us to say. Have a great BBC News at 9 o'clock. Councillors in Birmingham are expected to approve a wave of cuts to council services and a 21% increase in council tax over 2 years. Last night, Nottingham City Council approved a wide range of cuts, including closing care homes and libraries and charging people to use public toilets. Both councils have declared that they are, in effect, bankrupt. The Chancellor Jeremy Hunt is to urge councils in England to reduce spending on consultants and diversity schemes when he sets out his spring budget tomorrow. But Councillor Sean Jenkins, the chair of the Local Government Association, says that is not the main issue.
The demand for services is going up a record high, and the cost of providing those services is at a record high. The cuts from government are at a record high, and when we constantly know that we've seen more council tax cuts in the last 3 years, in the last 30 years, than one financial assessment to date. This is absolutely the government needs to address.
Ukraine says it has attacked a Russian patrol ship with maritime drones on the Ukrainian peninsula. The vessel said it could not respond. Millions of voters across the United States are heading to the polls today in the contest so far to choose the candidates for November's presidential election. 15 states and one overseas territory choosing their country nominee. This so far suggests Joe Biden and Donald Trump will lose the rematch in 2020. The European Union has reached a provisional deal to ban single-use plastics by the end of the decade. Vendors to deliver such items with cameras and food campaigns used by supermarkets. And a clearer US astronauts and one Russian cosmonaut are expected to the space station. Launch is expected to open the next hour, but on the 7th of This is BBC half an hour of exploring abilities to start a new chapter in life. Overcoming financial barriers to fertility treatment and Venus Focus. She continues to move to explore the place of life. Later this morning, Alistair Campbell is testifying to us. An hour before, continue the home. Spent an arm and a leg on his fault.
No one else has ever reported any problems with Horizon. I know one.
You're responsible for the loss. I haven't got that money, and I don't know where it's gone.
These deficits will most likely cause 5 years. That is the post office.
Huge success. Spur press, politicians, government into action. More action than the postmaster has seen in the 20 years since the first prosecution.
Mr. Speaker, this is one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in our nation's history. People who worked hard to serve their communities have their lives and their reputations destroyed through absolutely no fault of their own. The victims must get justice and compensation.
This is a grave scandal. Number one is a gross injustice as plain as anyone else. Action began to come. Let's look at the case. But only really took off when the story. That's the picture in 2024 of the great post office scandal. Later the program will be hearing about Charlotte Elizabeth Connor, 19th century writer and activist whose novels helped renew the Factory Act to improve working conditions for families. First, another reason to where wrongful convictions are tackled judicially. Nothing is Professor Rosalind Crowe. So Rosalind Crowe Who is the man at the centre of this story? What was he accused of?
Well, Jonathan, this is the story of a man called Adolf Beck, a businessman who was originally from Norway and came to Britain in the late 1860s. Lived in South America between 1868 and 1884, and then returned to England and settled in London. Now, on the 16th of December 1895, Beck was standing outside his home, his flat, when a woman came up to him and she accused him of being a thief. Fortunately, 3 weeks earlier, this woman, whose name was Ottilie Sonnier, had been a victim of crime. She had met this man in the street, and he sweet-talked his way into Ottilie's home. Now, he invited her on a holiday with him to the French Riviera, and wrote her a check to go and buy some new clothes for the holiday, and borrowed 2 of her rings so he could have new ones made for her. Well, Jonathan, the check bounced, the rings were not returned. Now, Ottilie was absolutely convinced that Adolf Beck, the man she thought 2 weeks later was her man, and she had him arrested. In 1895, around 50 women had been defrauded by the same trick. 22 of those women were invited down to the police station to come and take a look at Beck, and 10 of those women positively identified him. While this was happening, the police also made a link between this set of crimes and another almost identical set of frauds that had taken place in 1877. And back then, a man called John Smith had been convicted of those and served a sentence of long-term imprisonment. And when they saw Beck, they swore that Beck and John Smith were the same person. So Beck was charged and he stood trial at the Old Bailey. Unfortunately for him, the prosecution dropped the count which charged Beck with Smith's previous offence, and this completely scuppered Beck's defence, which was that the crimes of 1896 and those of 1877 were so similar that they could only have been committed by the same person, for example, John Smith. And Beck was not John Smith, as you might remember, as I said, in 1877, he had been in South America. Now, the jury decided that Beck was guilty for those crimes in 1896, and he was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment.
And the point is that he was sent to jail, sent on the very false basis of eyewitness identification, eyewitness testimony, and they had essentially got it wrong. They thought it was somebody else.
Like the post office scandal, what we have here is this case is absolute confidence in the infallibility of the technology, and the technology in this case being, of course, human facial recognition.
I'm looking now at pictures of the 2 men. You can see why they were confused. They did look vaguely similar, but the point is that the legal system, for all its faith, being, as you put it, the technology, which is the human eye, just as in the post office case, the technology got it wrong.
That's what they had in the late 19th century. I mean, we did know about fingerprints at the time of the war, but the Central Fingerprint Department was not set up until 1901.
So Adolf Beck is in jail, but he doesn't give up his quest to go.
No, he doesn't at all. So there's no criminal appeal at this time, and the judge in this case, Boris Fulton, didn't think there was any problem with what had gone on in his courtroom. So Beck and his solicitor could only petition the Home Secretary to try to secure a pardon, and that didn't work. Second, Beck's solicitor enlisted the support of a famous journalist called George Robert Sims. Now, Sims wrote an article on the case for a journal called The Referee, and that attracted some attention, but didn't really make that big a splash.
And what's so striking in this case is Beck had crucial evidence that would have shown anyone looking that they had got it wrong.
In May 1898, Beck's solicitor discovered that John Smith from 1877 was Jewish and had been circumcised. And he knew that this information would be on John Smith's penal record. And so he wrote to the Home Office, and they found the conclusive proof that Beck was not John Smith. But they still held him responsible for those 1896 offences. I mean, after all, so many witnesses had positively ID'd him.
And that initial sentence, that initial jail sentence, that was not the end of his troubles, though.
Yeah, a time in prison for Adolf Beck, it took its toll on him too. I mean, a sentence of 7 years penal servitude was a pretty tough thing to go through in those days. Now, Adolf Beck was released from prison in July 1901, but the story doesn't end there. So the frauds for which Smith and and Beck were convicted, the same MO, if you like, basically started again. And in 1904, Beck was arrested again. 5 women who'd been tricked out of their money, again positively identified Beck as a con man. And to Beck, this just must have felt like Groundhog Day, right? The worst possible nightmare.
Desperate for here, just as it was desperate for those sub-postmasters. We have Adolf Beck's state before the magistrate, hearing charges coming back again against him in 1904, and on hand to give us that are actor Ian Guy.
The prisoner's statement before the magistrate. Before God, my Maker, I am absolutely innocent of every charge brought against me. I have not spoken to or seen any of these women before they were set against me by the detectives. I can bring many witnesses to prove I have acted honestly in my business in the city from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. I ask the press to help me get all the evidence in support from my solicitor.
Well, Beck stood trial brought again at the Old Bailey in June 1904, and again a jury found him guilty, but the judge wasn't so sure, so he postponed sentencing Beck, sent him back to prison. In the meantime, the fraud continued, and another man called William Thomas was arrested. Thomas then confessed that he was in fact the Johnson of 1877, he was the con man of 1896, and he was a con man of 1904, he did the lot, and his real name was Wilhelm Meyer. So, on 19th July 1904, Beck was released from prison, and 10 days later, he received pardon of both convictions. A pardon was not good enough. It was not good enough for him, and it was not good enough for his friend, that journalist, George Robert Sims. They had an agenda. They wanted compensation for Beck, they wanted an inquiry, and they wanted legal reform. And so they mounted an amazing press campaign. The Daily Mail published this series of articles in which Sims told Beck's story with passion and outrage and in this suitably sensational style. And other newspapers grabbed onto the story as well and expressed their views on the case. Daily Telegraph wrote, "The public will not rest until a thorough investigation has been carried out." Daily Express, their title, "No sum large enough to repay Beck the agony he suffered." And all of these articles, they whipped up public attention. They attracted the attention of Arthur Conan Doyle, the Sherlock Holmes creator, who also gave support to Beck's case.
And that's particularly important because obviously he's one of the great storytellers of the age. He's now engaged, and that gets public opinion, public mood involved in this story. You mentioned those series of articles from the Daily Mail. We've got a flavour of that from our actor John Whiteley.
To use the word justice at all in connection with the trial and conviction of Adolf Beck is a mockery. From first to last, this unhappy man has been the victim of proceedings which are nothing short of a conspiracy to procure the conviction of a prisoner by suppressing facts which would have ensured his triumphant acquittal. To understand the case and what it means, to apprehend the mixture of stupidity and wickedness which has given us the Beck scandal, a knowledge of the details of 3 criminal trials is necessary. I will give them briefly, and having done so, I will leave it to the public to say if I have used unwarrantable language when I say that the convictions of Adolf Beck and the way in which they were brought about are a lasting disgrace to the administration of justice in this country.
What happens next? What are the consequences of this campaign?
Well, ultimately, the first campaigns, they succeed. So on the 9th of September 1904, the Home Secretary appointed a committee of inquiry to look at the case, and they finished their investigations in November and produced a report. And that report really heavily criticised the judge from the 1896 trial, Sir Boris Fulton, and also the Home Office. So it did.
Now it's time to move on. And if you're listening on BBC Sounds, welcome. Lorata.
I'd like to see more respect given to cultural, different cultures in cooking. The top chefs, right down to creators, creating recipes from different cultures and acknowledging those cultures, giving that sort of recognition to the cuisine that you're playing with. I think it's a nice thing to do before saying, and here's my dish. And I'd also like to say, more respect for West African cooking. But I'm a little late on that. We did get 2 Michelin stars recently, so.
Right, well, that's the call to revolution over and done with. Let's have our first question now from Lola Leverage from Stanford.
Please could I have a recipe ideas for avocados? I bought a £2 bowl at a local veg market and I have 34 of them.
You have 34 avocados.
Yes.
When you decided to sell out for £2, did you think, looks like a bargain, or did you have no idea how many avocados were going to be placed?
No idea how many. I thought there'd be about a dozen. I thought, probably a dozen in a week. But
34. I mean, the obvious thing, you know, as they say, if you've got lemons, make lemonade. If you've got avocados, make guacamole and invite a lot of friends round. That's the obvious boring one. I'm going to go to Tim Anderson. Any thoughts?
Yeah, well, first of all, you can make a pretty good ice cream out of avocado. You can even make it vegan because to replace the cream and eggs in a recipe, you just use a plant-based milk, a rice milk or an almond milk, blend it right in so it's nice and thick, add whatever sweetener you like, and it takes well to cinnamon. It makes a really good cinnamon ice cream, not sure why, but it's really delicious, and it brings out the nuttiness of the avocado. And that you can stash away in the freezer, so it takes a lot of them off your hands. But you can also deep fry them, which I think a lot of people are a little bit iffy about, but basically if you bread them in the panko breadcrumbs, any kind of breadcrumbs really, then deep fry them until they're nice and golden, they have a texture kind of like a croquette. They go creamy in the middle. It's a pretty neutral flavor, and I think that because that's quite rich, it likes to have something kind of punchy and sharp as a dip, so I go with a gochujang mayo, like a Korean chili paste mixed with mayo. Very simple, very delicious.
All right, so that's how to get rid of one avocado. Any ice cream? Any ice cream? Lorate.
I think a lovely sort of tropical type recipe is kachumbari. It's an East African, Kenyan, Tanzanian type salad. So cube up those avocados, you know, nice firm/soft avocados, and then add some tomatoes, nice tart tomatoes, some chili, jalapeno, or you can go, you know, for proper chili if you'd like, and some cucumber. So you have that nice crunch, and then make a little dressing with olive oil, a little bit of mustard, a dash of salt, and then mix all that in, and that soaks up all that wonderful flavor. The creamy sweet avocados and all those other sort of tart, zesty flavors are wonderful together.
It occurs to me, Lola, that if you were sold 34 avocados for £2, is this because they were on the turn?
Well, no, they're actually like that.
Oh, right. So there's basically an avocado glut of some kind in East Sussex.
No, but there are.
Oh, is it Kent?
Yes, sorry.
Nothing like that in East Sussex. Just in Kent. The living the dream. If your dream involves 34 avocados. I'm sticking actually with have a party and make a lot of guacamole. Hope that helps.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to The Kitchen Cabinet, which today comes from Lewes in East Sussex, a county with an ever-growing number of celebrated vineyards. We're pretty familiar with English sparkling wine now, with the amount of media attention it's received over recent years. But Alice, as our drinks expert, I'd like to get your thoughts on the current state of the English wine landscape. It's often mentioned that the terroir, or the average English wine growing conditions bad, feature the same chalky soil as that of the Champagne region, that our changing climate is bringing the south of England closer to that of Champagne. But is this comparison with Champagne helpful?
Yeah, well, I think initially the modelling certainly the image of Champagne, but the really exciting change we're now seeing is I think English and Welsh winemakers are growing confidence about what they're doing, really starting to find their own identity, and you can see that not just in the sort of style of the wine that they're making, but also in the language that they're using. So, you know, we're seeing less sort of Frenchified language and more just sort of plain speaking, you know. So, yeah, English wine finding some identity.
And it's not just sparkling, is it?
That's right, with still wines, there's some really great still wines coming through now. We've seen some great wine coming from King in Sussex, and also Essex is emerging. It's a real hotbed for great still.
Are vineyards also distilling in the way they do in other parts of the winemaking world?
Yeah, well, that's very much a traditional thing to try and find other ways to use the stuff that's left over after you press the grapes. So we're also seeing produce vermouths and grape-based spirits as well, and even beauty products. I think they probably make you feel like a better person.
Yeah, okay. Going back to still wines, great.
So Chardonnay and Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier are the big three that are planted in England now. Those are the three grapes that are used to make champagne as well, but they're also used to make still wine. So Pinot Noir is still red wine, and Chardonnay is still.
There are some sort of relationship with wine, though.
West Africa, in a place like Nigeria, we have something called palm wine, which essentially is, wine that's not, gotten from grapes that people squash with their feet. But, the wine grinds up a palm. It could be a date palm or a coconut palm or any other sort of palm species. And they climb up the tree, make a hole in it, and sort of distill the sap. And the sap becomes the wine. It's not grape-based, but we call it palm wine.
And what about you and grape-based wine?
I do love cooking with wine. That would be my favorite recipe.
What do you do? What's your go-to?
So one of my favorites is actually a dish called smothered oxtail. So it's a light to medium bodied red protein in a dish with oxtail, allspice, so mixing the wine and spice, spots on it for that fruity, fiery flavor, carrot, sweet, and let that cook low and slow. In fact, my friend here, Nicola, inspired that recipe. Her late mom used to cook that for her as a child, and that's why I call the dish smothered oxtail.
Nicola's here. So, is Morato's oxtail and red wine as good as your mum?
Up to standard, definitely. And I'm not being forced to say that. I really, really enjoy it. Yeah.
And you passed on the recipe, but has the recipe come from your mum to you, and then you passed it on to Morato? Or?
My mum passed away, but my auntie, so my mum's one of 6 in the 5 boys, 1 boy, so all the aunties cook it, and they cook it all have their own variations. Like you say, they use measurements and exact, you do kind of guess. So there's never always an exact recipe, and I had to sort of amalgamate it from all the aunties and figure it out from there.
Right, so it's a recipe from all the aunties. I like what you said. We should all have recipes from all the aunties. Tim Anderson, you are more of a beer guy, it's fair to say. Yeah. Or you actually worked as a beer guy? I did, yeah, on multiple roles. Would you like to hear them? How many roles were there?
My cerveza CV.
I was a beer salesman, I was a beer buyer for a supermarket, and I ran a pub. And I've done actually about 20 different collaboration deals with companies and stuff. Do you have no involvement with wine, or do you have cook? I do cook a bit, but usually it's bartender my cooking as a substitute for sake. If I run a sake, or if I come up with wine, excellent stuff. Let's take a question related to wine from Annie Wheeler from Croydon.
What is your favourite drink to pair with wine? Would you go to any or
Right, well, these are the important questions. And the shelves are full of many more crisp products than they ever were before. Whatever anybody says, all the brands are in quite available. Alex, you are our drink expert. Where do you stand on wine and crisp?
Well, we love the salty snacks in our house and spend a lot of time examining and comparing wine and crisps. And the sparkling wine premium.
You have to say, there's paprika, there's sour cream, at one point they made salted caramel cream. They were terrible.
Yeah, so I think the sour cream and try variety of forms, or just plain salted. But yeah, Pringles and sparkling wine, excellent. When it comes to red wine, maybe something like a party, a bacon crisp, I think. So you're getting the saltiness, and it's got a bit of that punch that you need to go with red wine.
Yeah, the red meat of crisps.
Oh, and one last one, and for rosé, actually, spicy
I think we're getting round the brand people. I'm just mentioning all of them. Can I put a vote in for Chris White? I think that would be Germany makes a Groucho butter focused crisp. This is a bourbon and garlic butter focused crisp. It tastes like bourbon, garlic, mashed potatoes, and delicious. You actually brought a bag with you to the course. I did. I'm a Groucho butter crisp evangelist. And then the best one, I think, is the Polish creamy forest mushroom crisp. These are delicious. It tastes like a sort of earthy or chili mushroom soup. They're great. And when they go with a big red album, absolutely. The
zesty, spicy, salty flavors. That was my favorite pairing.
Alice, you're not literacy as well. Colleagues, there's a whole area of research that has to be done pairing wines with sauce.
Yes, well, I'm here with you.
Annie, thank you for the question. We didn't realise it was the question we needed. Let's take our next question from Liza from Brighton.
With coming into the nettle season, other than soups and adding them to smoothies, what else can you use it for?
Do you have a lot of nettles on your estate?
I have a nice grass verge next to the railway line that I like to go to. Yes.
Okay, so there are nettles about. Dorado, what can we do with nettles?
Nettle pesto, nice and easy.
And is it just made the same way as you would any other pesto?
The same way, and it's the same way we have lots of modern type pestos now with green peas, with spinach, with lots of different additions. So if you use your favorite nuts or your favorite seeds, it's a really nice pesto out of it.
Oh, that's a good one. Ted? I don't care for nettles. So I'm going to sidestep the question and say, you know what season we're also coming up on? Wild garlic. There you go. And wild garlic, I have just the thing. You could probably do it with nettles too, which is to preserve it in miso. So you take miso, chopped up wild garlic, or nettles, or the forage green of your choice, and sugar. Mix it all together and then let it age for anywhere from a week to several months. And the miso soaks up the flavor of the nettle or the wild garlic, and of course the garlic sort of wilts within it and becomes something you can use as a condiment or as a marinade. It's fantastic. You can sort of massage it into lamb and then grill it. But you can also have it just as a dip for any kind of like grilled meat or even vegetables as well. It's really, really delicious and very, very simple to make. I've got to ask you, Liza, there's a nettle day, isn't there, in Sussex?
Yes, it's a sting nettle day on the 2nd of May, but there are sting nettle days usually around the beginning of May.
And what exactly are we celebrating on Sting?
Well, there is a little bit of a routine where you would get your legs whacked with stinging nettles, just for fun. But also, it's said that after sting nettle day, you shouldn't think because the devil uses the nettles to make his shirts from. So it's just a sort of a full stop in the nettle season history.
Because it's obviously the 18th century at this point.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I understand. Alice, drinks, what can we do with them?
Well, nettle cordial can make a really nice variation on gimlet. Gin, lime juice, and lime cordial. Instead of using lime cordial, instead. And there are some very easy ready-made commercial flavors.
How would you know how to make your own nettle cordial?
I have to say I haven't tried.
Well, if Liza, if you would like to check to make your own nettle cordial and let us know how it goes, email address is pkc@uk.
Absolutely, I'll go for that.
Brilliant. And when it comes around, do enjoy speaking. You're listening to The Kitchen Cabinet, which this week comes to you from Lewis. We've already heard about the fine grapes grown in the region, but there's plenty more going on in the fields surrounding Lewis, with a growing number of producers experimenting with non-native crops as both a climate and architects alter. Tim, you're a Japanese food expert, this must be exciting. Yeah, there's a farm nearby here, some of you may know, from Namayase, which grows all kinds of amazing Japanese produce. You get fresh edamame from them, you get daikon, you get mitsuba, all your favorites. And in other Sussex, there's a nursery. The other Sussex, there's another one. I won't say which is better. Yeah, not far from here, there's a nursery that grows all citrus, only citrus fruits in the greenhouse in the city center. They grow yuzu, which is one of my favorite things of all time. It's such a great flavor. Well, let's stick with yuzu. Tell us what it is first and why this happened. Okay, so yuzu is a citrus fruit. It is originally a hybrid of a mandarin and some kind of ancient useless lemon. They call it Yichang lemon. Apparently it's not very palatable at all. But the yuzu is very, very palatable. They're very, very aromatic. The smell of them is sort of like a mix of lemon, grapefruit, and something herbal, almost like thyme. It's really kind of an irreplaceable aroma. And most of that aroma is in the peel. You can buy the juice, and the juice is delicious, but it's very, very expensive because if you get a fresh yuzu
you'll see an inch with it, isn't much flesh inside. But you can also get the frozen keel, which you can order online, and that's a really great way to get a lot of yuzu flavor into food. And then if you can't get those, then the juice is okay, but the juice again is very expensive. You're gonna end up spending a lot of money trying to get yuzu flavor. What have you brought? Hand it out. Okay, so first of all, I brought some ponzu, which you can just try with a little spoon. Ponzu is a citrus seasoning. It's not always going to be yuzu, but this one is. You can buy it, you can make it. It's actually one of the more cost-effective ways to get yuzu flavor into dishes because it's mixed with other seasoning. It's mixed with soy sauce, you use sugar, you see some mirin, and dashi as well. So it's sour because the juice is sour, but it's well-rounded. It's salty, it's umami. It's a great dip for. It's very, very versatile. Narate, describe the taste of it.
As you said, it has that umami flavor, salty, sweet, sharp at the same time.
Okay, what do you use it for? Ponzu is amazing for everything. It's great. Sort of the classic thing to have with it is sashimi, just raw fish. For any kind of cooked fish, you could also have it as just for dumplings, like gyoza. Alex, you must be a big fan of yuzu with your drink background.
Yeah, I'm crazy about yuzu fruit. And the lovely thing about yuzu is they're season, in the depth of winter. And in Japan, they have festivals celebrating yuzu season. One of the things they do is create yuzu onsen. So an onsen is a hot spring, and they fill these hot springs with lots of golden yuzu fruit and then have a bar.
And have you done this?
Incredible scented bar. I did actually once recreate my own yuzu onsen at home, and it was fantastic. My whole flat smelled completely amazing in the day.
Well, we have a question. Here we go. So I'm going to walk. We'll walk quickly. Get over on the side. Run ahead of me. You can actually hear total strangers shouting for it already, but Chris has decided to walk it from the very start. Set up in great big blocks, by the way, by 10,000 people. There are now 10,000 people running driving the back on. But if I run now, I will not get to the end. You're looking at me like, really? The best 100 it's got a big crowd. Mate, I'm 100 metres from the start. And we're walking already. I can hear Chris is feeling a bit embarrassed, or at least self-conscious. He's aware that he's not pushing the limits of his endurance right at the moment. Because he's cautious. He doesn't know his body well enough to know what he's capable of. Because he's starting almost from scratch.
Someone who hasn't been running decides to get up off the couch and decides they want to run park run. And they start out doing a little run walk, building for them, jogging for a minute, and walking for a minute. As time goes on, they're running for 2 minutes, they're running for 3 minutes, they're running for 4 minutes. We know it's very well established, all the changes that are going on in the body. We know that your heart's getting stronger, you're going more to calories and all these other things. What we sort of forget sometimes is that the mind is changing too. As you're putting yourself through something that is, frankly unpleasant, as much as I would like, you're learning to tolerate that discomfort. You're learning the difference between a sort of warning sign and an alarm bell. 3 months later, when you go to that park run, your body is stronger, but you're also actually willing to sustain a level of discomfort that you weren't able to sustain 3 months earlier. So the training is happening in both cases, and the training is generalizable too. This ability to tolerate discomfort is transferable to other parts of your lives.
In one famous study from the 1980s, recreational swimmers were compared to international swimmers, not in the pool, but in terms of pain tolerance. Both groups had blood pressure cuffs inflated tightly around their arms. Now that's painful for anyone, but the elite swimmers were able to cope with the pain far better.
They're better at distracting themselves, compartmentalizing, reinterpreting pain signals so that when they're feeling discomfort, their response is, yes, I'm doing what I need to do because this is making me better and I'm going to be a better swimmer, as opposed to, this is stupid, why am I doing this? Pain is something that our response to it is what dictates how we react to it.
I was just going to say, we see that all the time in hospital where people come in terrible pain, chest pain for example, and you say, how bad is your pain? And they say, it's 10 out of 10, it's the worst I've ever experienced. And you investigate, you do an ECG, you take some blood tests, you come back and say that you're not having a heart attack, you've got indigestion. And their pain, they say, what's the pain now? And they say, oh, it's 2 out of 10 now, because they're not afraid of the pain anymore. It sounds a bit like that's what's going on with the athletes, that they're not terrified of it, that their experience of it may even be positive, that this is the pain necessary to achieve their goal.
Yeah, I mean, as you guys know, pain is such a fascinating topic, and there's amazing studies with, like, if you tell people, okay, this is going to hurt a bit, but it's good for your muscles, it'll make you stronger, versus if you tell people, we're testing your pain tolerance and it's just going to hurt, so they just think of it as pain. It's totally different.
Now this adds some nuance to the idea of no pain, no gain. If you're exercising and you remind yourself that the pain is really beneficial, you actually interpret the pain differently. Sometimes endurance athletics can drift into extreme danger. For example, a double-decker triathlon challenge is a 48-mile swim, followed by a 2,240-mile cycle ride, and then 20 marathons. To me, that sounds like it might be taking the idea of endurance a bit far.
What is the definition of crazy? It's just slightly more than what I'm willing to do, right? So there are people who are like, you run every day?
That's like the definition of an alcoholic, is if you drink more than your doctor.
Exactly. There's on running message boards, there's great debates about what constitutes elite or good or average runner, and everyone's definition is always, everyone faster than me is on drugs and everyone slower than me is just a dilettante. So yeah, I look at some of these peaks and I'm like, well, why would anyone do that? If you look at, let's say, ultramarathoners, there's often a high prevalence of people who struggled in the past with substance use disorders. They're using, running or other endurance feats to maybe fill a hole that they can fill in less than 2 days. I don't think that's a universal rule, and I don't think everyone who goes and runs a marathon is, fleeing demons. Maybe what I would say in a more positive spin is that people are running away from the predictability and comfort and ease of everyday life.
If you're an independent person, which meant they could do what they like, because we didn't know about each other, because I thought I was the only one, it was terrifying, and I just felt like I had done something really bad, and they'd only ever told me I was the only one, so I did really believe I was the only person it had ever happened to.
But Jo Hamilton was one of hundreds. She agreed to pay the post office £36,000 and pleaded guilty to false accounting. The judge, who can understand why she was in this court, gave her a 12-month supervision order. Her conviction was quashed in 2021 alongside 38 others. At the end of last week, the post office made a significant admission about some of its investigators and lawyers. Some important roles, both the security and criminal law teams, were occupied by individuals who did not have sufficient understanding of the obligations attaching to their roles. The public inquiry into the scandal. To learn more about these obligations, I turned to Richard Moorhead, Professor of Law and Commercial Ethics at Exeter University. We began by discussing the background of the scandal, which went through 3 phases.
The first phase is forcing the phantom debts from the computer system onto the sub-postmasters through legal threat, through sacking, termination, through litigation, suing people for in particular criminal prosecutions, which were impeccable, it's been clear now. That phase lasted from about 2000 to 2015, although everyone's noting that there's a problem on the horizon. Then there's the kind of how they responded to red flags. So there were major events 2009, 2010, and especially 2013, where there were really big red flags raised about either Horizon or their handling of the prosecution, or both those things. So there was a stage in 2010 when they were told by our state working in-house for a solicitor firm that there was a profound problem with their prosecution. Profound was his language. And that profound problem disappeared and became, in 2015, Court of Evidence, but then State Parliament. There is no evidence to support miscarriages of justice, no evidence. But if you make that assertion, so she says, so it seems on the basis of legal work done by a team of lawyers, given her sound outside. So that's the response to red flags. And stage 3 is kind of stalling existing, fighting that process when it was taken through the courts. The Post Office continued to fight it, like either a fundamental attack on the Horizon is fine, and then a rear guard on the prosecution really quite as bad as everybody's saying they are. They were profoundly flawed. It was individual cases which were unsafe.
You mentioned core practice at the beginning.
Yeah.
Perhaps lack of disclosure, for example. To what extent was this a breach of professional ethics? To what extent was it actually a breach of the law?
So I think in all the 3 phases there are suggestions or sometimes quite clear evidence of breaches of professional ethics, misleading the court, failures to disclose, lacking in integrity in pressuring postmasters to plead guilty, that sort of thing, acting on commercial imperatives rather than imperatives of the legal system. Like, there's also a big question about whether there have been criminal offences committed by the lawyers. Averting the Court of Justice is the obvious one, which essentially boils down to whether what the lawyer did to divert the justice system towards the interests of the Post Office, whether that was properly within the legal grounds of what a lawyer can and should do, or whether it was in some way improper.
Like many large organisations, the Post Office has lawyers on its staff. It also makes use of external bodies, solicitors, barristers and others, to act for various things. I asked Richard Moorhead whether in-house lawyers, people directly employed by the Post Office, were in a different position from outsiders.
The duties are exactly the same. They have the same obligations to be independent, in particular. The differences in practical terms, they're obviously more embedded in the organisation. They have strong day-to-day relationships with the executives and other people in the business.
The Post Office lawyers weren't giving independent advice to their clients, they were taking their client's side.
Yes, leaning too heavily towards the client's interest, shading advice towards the client's interest, perhaps misrepresenting what that advice is, even not disclosing evidence when they ought to, not being in a position to think about that clearly, making arguments for the court sometimes that were regarded by the courts as misleading, all those kinds of problems. Fighting too hard, seeing things too much from the point of view of the client, not challenging, using evidence when perhaps they ought to be given the seriousness of that as it's said.
Sir Wood Williams, who chairs the budget inquiry, has taken evidence from a number of lawyers, some in the House, some outside the House, can you give me an example of what was wrong from this process?
We quite often see lawyers in the witness box presenting ideal of professionalism or entirely proper, they did the right thing, and that is starting to fall apart as they're examined by the inquiry council. So, for instance, one particular case where it is very interesting is Warwick Tapper, barrister in practice, prosecuted a case for the Post Office, goes in and makes a very decent, genuine, heartfelt apology for his role in the scandal, and says in essence, it was a bit of a muddle, but I did my best.
Do you feel ashamed about what's happened? And the best I can do is try and help the inquiry and try and learn a bit myself, but that's enough of that. It's much more important to answer the questions, but I'm sorry, I feel ashamed of all parts of this, but I want to try and help if I can.
You see him realising that in this box that actually he hasn't come anywhere close to meeting the obligations that the rules as a prosecutor and his professional rules required.
It was quite a demanding exercise to do a witness state to go through matters. I found that to clarify as to what happened. And when I said I felt ashamed, I did. And I actually feel worse because it's become quite clear in the evidence is what we put before me, that there are many failings that I had ignored on my part. I perhaps created a rosier vision in my memory that wasn't really there. I apologise unreservedly.
One of the things that's interesting about that is the kind of realisation, as you said, but the other is he had a chance to prepare for that hearing, he's had most of the papers, and he would have known that some of these questions would have been coming, or he ought to have known, and he doesn't appear to have thought deeply enough about what it was that he might be thought to have done wrong.
And he's not alone. I suspect there were many others like that.
There are variations on that theme in many of the lawyers before the inquiry.
Let's move on to what the government is announcing that it's planning to do. Can you begin by explaining your role in this? Because you were a member of a small committee, was it?
Yeah, so it's called the Horizon Compensation Advisory Board. We were initially asked to advise only on one of the schemes, but the other two got put within our remit.
And before Christmas, your board came up with quite a relevant suggestion.
It did, and the proposal was that the government...
Huh?
We've got to do something quickly, and there are good reasons. Many of these people are elderly, a lot of them have suffered significant financial hardship over the years, and we want to do something which is going to work. Would this work?
Ask her rather than tell her.
Exactly, yes.
Is it acceptable for people who were rightly convicted to get compensation if that means that those who were wrongly convicted get their cases resolved more quickly?
That's been a long-standing principle of the common law, and we've always taken the view it is better that one or more guilty people go free than one innocent person is punished for something they haven't done.
And the government agrees with Isabel Plumstead, as the Minister told MPs last week. We've always been clear that some guilty people will be made innocent people.
你今日點啊，哥哥？
We think that's a risk worth taking.
哥哥，你今日點啊
One reason why so many
？What did you do today？邊個同你坐啊 ？Poppy？Poppy is the one you hate. Did you fight? You did fight. 有冇俾老師罰啊？有冇俾老師罰啊？冇啊？做咩？哦。
But the Minister of Justice is back to drive digital transformation in the legal sector. She told me what the law now says and why she thinks it needs to be changed.
The computer is presumed to be in working order unless it is proven to be otherwise. But it's been played out, obviously, reports in a number of cases where there have been serious, grave miscarriages of justice because of this assumption.
There is a tendency, isn't there, to think the computer is bound to be right?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, there's a growing body of research and evidence to show that human beings really tend to defer to computer decisions. We place real and often inappropriate trust in computer-generated recommendations, even when that conflicts with our judgment, our own experiences. And that's a real risk when it comes to court process and the use of digital evidence and computer evidence.
So you would like the law to inform that?
Yes, absolutely, I would. And I'm not alone in that. There are many lawyers who operate in this area are really keen for government to review this.
The law hasn't always presumed that the computer must be right. January 1986, April 2000, you couldn't rely on computer in court unless you could show that the computer was operating as it should, and there were no reasonable ways to prove the computer was operating. Those laws want to safeguard convenient usage.
I think what we now accept is that all computers are fallible. They are prone to bugs, to problems. And to start from that presumption, then actually it's really important that there is evidence that's brought to court to ensure that if there's any computer evidence, the court can actually rely upon it.
We don't require an expert to come to court with all evidence to say that that expert check that computer.
No, not at all. I mean, clearly we have to be proportionate. For example, if it's an off-the-shelf computer product, then maybe just the last version that's been implemented, and then there will be publicly available information about the glitches and the issues that that new version has dealt with.
Let's take the example of the post office Horizon IT system that I believe the
office east to the east. Let's imagine that the sub-postmaster is prosecuted for theft or false accounting. What would the prosecutor have to bring to court to show that that conclusive evidence was reliable?
I think there needs to be some additional evidence that shows that there are no relevant bugs, errors, or problems with that computer system. And of course, with the post office scandal, the relevant records, the error records, were not actually produced until ordered by the court in 2018. So the proceedings started, the first cases were in 2000. So it's really important, and it's often missed.
Often missed. The law had not been changed at the end of 1999, and the existing law was still in force, that it would have been necessary to prove the reliability of Horizon evidence. The post office would have had to ensure that it had error records which could be produced in court, and maybe these miscarriages of justice would have happened.
I think that's a distinct possibility, and it's tragic for us to think about this now, but really important that the lessons are learned and that we seek to change the law and regulations to enable justice and to ensure that we continue to traffic these kinds of matters.
Da 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 pa 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 to 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 ta 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 ta
their own case to settle. They had the temptation to decide your life within yourself. This is where it's therefore displayed. We talked about the post office bringing private prosecution. Is that how you describe it? The post office, which is government's own agency, operates as a government prosecutor.
咁行佢呢個真係恐怖嘅真係，人行咁呢度。
quasi government prosecution. I don't think anybody said they might be one of our cases, or this is a private prosecution.
哥哥你翻學嘅話，咁好似嗰個叔叔咁行喎，咁我好慘咯，哥哥真係。
Was that because they were handling their own prosecution? No. And I think the proof of the pudding is this, that a number of the cases were prosecuted by the Crown Prosecution Service and in Scotland by the Office of the Procurator Fiscal. So the identity of the prosecutor is not determinative of what's going on. Now, I can't conceive of a public prosecutor wanting to conceal or ever conceal this information, and yet it would happen in it, like it possibly done on CBS cases as well. But that's not possible then, because within the post office at some point a decision was taken not to pass on and reveal information that was critical to these cases. And so if that's never revealed to the lawyers that are handling the case, then it doesn't really matter what system you've got. What matters is making sure that information gets up to the level at which it is displayed. Andrew Marshall.
嗰度睇，嗰間屋睇。
The post office scandal, but that's all we have to report. Next week's Law in Action will be fighting much harder. He's on. Just so Rosenberg, the producer of Law in Action, is Harlan Gregorius. A poet and a singer-songwriter,
Ricardo.
books with writing advice from the master of horror and a novel about a puppy lost
Ricardo.
in the jungle. In a good read after this.
No way.
On BBC iPlayer,
The story that I never
Package.
heard before.
real people, unbelievable stories, including another body.
We think videos can make someone appear as though they're saying or doing something that they're
Of it's the
not.
harm.
No woman in the world is safe from this technology.
My fault.
Beyond utopia,
There is no freedom of religion, no freedom of thought, no freedom of press in North Korea.
and revenge, our dad the Nazi killer.
They all believe Dad was responsible for taking out a Nazi fugitive living in Australia.
Storyboy, watch on BBC iPlayer.
Now on Radio 4, here's Harriet Gilbert with A Defeat. Hello, if you're thinking of writing a novel or actually writing one, stay listening. In fact,